I actually started in the Mexico City North mission, and when I hit a year on my mission, they switched me. They split up our mission, and I ended up in the Queretaro mission. When I got there, I was pretty scared and nervous just because I'd never been out of the country before. The Spanish that I had learned in the MTZ, I knew it was inadequate. It was very basic, and so I didn't really have a whole lot of confidence talking to people in the airport. On the plane ride from Utah to Mexico, the flight attendants were speaking in Spanish, and I was getting nervous because I had no idea. We had to fill out these. They were pretty much immigration forms or like customs forms, and I had no idea what to put. I put of country of origin. I put America, and I found out that outside of the U.S., everyone in Canada or Mexico or Central America or South America, they kind of get, I don't know if they get offended as much as they think it's annoying when Americans refer to the U.S. as America, because they think that all of this is America, which it is. But I just realized that on the plane, the flight attendant looked at me and he's like, America what? Canada, Mexico? You're not the only American. I was like, oh. So that was one of the first little culture shocks that I went through. But yeah, once I got to the field, I was relieved to know that my president and his wife spoke English. They actually, as soon as we pulled up to their house, they greeted us in English, and they had really good American accents. And so the stress kind of started going down. We had a nice dinner. Next day, I met my trainer, who was an American. So that helped me as well. The stress went down, and I was able to learn a lot from him. Just probably one of the biggest challenges in the first few months, though, of just getting to the field was definitely the language, because I was able to adapt to the work day. It went by super fast every day. We would just plan and do our daily activities, and just that language for the first 4 months, I kind of struggled with it. But I'd say once those first 4 months in the field were over, I could speak Spanish fluently and felt comfortable. A lot of people get sick just from like food, or maybe like stress, or they get tired or something. Or in my first few weeks, I was one of those missionaries that got sick. To this day, I don't know what I ate that made me sick, but there's lots of medicine down there, and it works pretty well. And I took these pills for about 3 days, day and night, and it killed whatever infection I had in my stomach, and I was fine right after. So there are some, weird symptoms, things that happen that have never happened to you before, and you start freaking out. But when we first got there, the mission president's wife promised all of us that we might be throwing up a lot or having to go to the bathroom a lot, but that she assured us we were not dying, that it was just something that happened a lot to missionaries. But after a month, I felt good. I felt healthy. I was eating regularly, drinking plenty of water, and you're fine. Your body adjusts to it. The church it's growing pretty at a pretty decent rate there. They just about 3 years ago, or 2.5, right before I got there, they opened up a new stake, and they're opening up new wards and building new meeting houses. And the closest temple to Querétaro is in Mexico City, and it's about a 2-hour trip by bus. But I heard members talking that if it keeps growing at the rate that it is right now, they'll probably see a temple pretty close to that area in the next few years, or at least an announcement. So that'll be cool. If that happens, I hope it does. There aren't really a whole lot of branches in Querétaro. They're actually wards, and they're growing quite well. A big problem down there is retention and activation of inactive members, or members will get baptized, and they might start to go inactive because they'll get a new job. Lots of people change jobs really frequently down there, and they'll have to work on Sundays, or they can only go to church one Sunday a month or stuff like that. And so there's lots of people being baptized, but I'd say in each ward probably has around 700 members, but out of those 700, between 80 and 180 will attend. I know several times in my mission, like usually around the beginning of the year, New Year's, the first Sunday of the year, or around Christmas time or Easter, you'll get a huge spike in people that'll go to church, and then you won't see them for a few weeks or a few months. But that's the the great work that's going on right now, is while we're still baptizing new people and helping people to join Christ Church, we're helping people come back. And so those wards are starting to spike back up again and grow. And it's amazing how the church buildings down there, they can look so, I guess, small when there's only a few people in there. But when you start getting in lots of families and members, it's amazing how many people you can fit into the sacrament room, into the chapel. So we have the state of Queretaro, and then the state next to it, it's called Guanajuato. So both of those states are the mission. Queretaro, there's 3 stakes, and Guanajuato there's 5 or 6 in the whole state of Guanajuato. And there's lots of members there, but it's not growing quite as fast as Querétaro. But I know that a few apostles have visited Guanajuato and spoken. And in the state of Querétaro, it's actually one of the smallest states in Mexico. It's not big at all. You can get from one side of the state to the other side in probably an hour and a half. It's very industrious. There's lots of factories. One cultural shock for me was there are a lot of wealthy Mexicans in the state of Querétaro. They have very nice houses. There's also a lot of poor areas too. A lot of unfinished houses, like cinder block houses, and they'll have like tarps for roofs, or they won't have, it'll just be a bunch of dirt in front of their house. But the most people that I talked to, they had cars, they had, plenty of money for food and for TVs and stereos and video games. And so the people there are very hardworking, or in Querétaro. Lots of resources available. And as a missionary, it wasn't, I never felt like, I never felt like I didn't have, enough food or anything like that. There was always resources there. And the living conditions there for missionaries, we just lived in regular houses or apartments. And what's interesting there is hardly anybody, you will probably only see carpet 3 or 4 times in your mission. And it will probably be in a bishop's office at the church, or by some stroke of luck, maybe you'll get taken to a restaurant and they might have carpet there. But it's all tile. There's no wood floors or anything. It's either tile or cement or dirt. And so that was kind of an odd thing for me, because, here in the U.S. we have carpet on everything pretty much. The houses aren't really insulated because they're cinder block, and then there's maybe some plaster and some paint. And so the houses can get kind of drafty. But in the summer months, it's also nice because it gets a little cool. The Leon mission, about 2 years ago, they split it in half and took a few parts of it that were Aguas Calientes and a place called San Luis Potosi. and they made that its own mission, and they called it the Aguas Calientes mission. And then they took León and the whole state of Guanajuato and added it to the Queretaro mission. So we pretty much you could kind of say that they shut the León mission down, or they cut it in half and renamed it the Aguas Calientes mission. But I guess any way you look at it, León isn't a mission anymore. So really the only thing that changes, and from one part of Mexico to another part is the food and their accents. In Mexico City, people talk super fast and in kind of a high-pitched voice. And then in Querétaro, people speak more moderately at a good tempo. And actually, a lot of people move to Querétaro from other places in Mexico. So you get lots of people from all over the country there. It's very beautiful there, very green. Lots of, especially in the northern part of Querétaro, they have a lot of fruit trees, and as far as I knew, there still weren't any missionaries up that north, but it's been growing. So you might get to serve in a very kind of like a farm town area where there'll be lots of like fruit trees and stuff like that. And that is kind of different. You wouldn't see stuff like that in Mexico City or in northern Mexico, where it's a little more deserty. I served in a city called San Juan del Rio, which is about 40 minutes east of Querétaro, and it's still in the state of Querétaro. So the capital of Querétaro is called Querétaro, and that city where I served, San Juan, it's about like 40 minutes away. But it's kind of like a small town. It's got a small town feel to it, but it's got a lot of industries and factories and stuff like that. So a lot of people will go there to work. And there were 2 wards there in that city where I served in. And then just north of that city is a little historic city called Tequisquiapan. And there, what's interesting about that city is it's actually the center of Mexico. They have a monument there that says this point is the center of Mexico, and it's this pretty tall steel structure. But they have a branch down there, and there's actually a lot of members, and you'll see a lot of Americans there too, because it's a very little wealthy city. Lot of nice houses. And you'll have a lot of people from Canada or from the US that live there, and they speak English, and they invite the missionaries over and feed them American food. It's pretty good. And then on the other side of the state, where the capital is, that's where you have more of the wards and more of members, and then in the state next to it, Guanajuato, there are several big, rather large cities, and I served in the city of León. And that city has about 10 wards, and there's only one stake, but it's just very huge, very large. From one end of the city to the other end takes like an hour just driving on the bus, because there's traffic and there's lots and lots and lots of neighborhoods. Those were the kind of the 2 bigger cities that I served in, and then there was a little, where I finished my mission, it was a little city that they actually have a lot of shoe factories. A lot of shoes are made there, and they just have 1 ward. Because I switched missions when I was there, when I hit a year, I only had 3 areas left that I served in, and there were those 3 cities. So I didn't get to see as much as the mission as missionaries are finishing this year. They have, because in June the Mexico Querétaro mission will be 2 years old. So they had more of an opportunity to see a lot more of the mission than I did. So that first city that I mentioned, San Juan del Rio, that's in Queretaro, and the other two that I served in, Leon, and then the one where they made all the shoes, that one's called San Francisco del Rincon. Those two are in Guanajuato, and they're actually right next to each other. Those were like on the extreme west side of the mission, and then San Juan del Rio was on the extreme east side of the mission. So Leon is absolutely huge. It just keeps growing, and it's funny how you get into like the downtown area, and then you'll get into like the rural parts where the roads are still dirt. They don't have any paved roads, and it's here in the US we might think of it as like, oh, there's Salt Lake City here in Utah, and then you'll go down to Murray and it's a suburb. Well, over there it's just the same city, and it's divided into neighborhoods or colonies, and so each street sign will say, like, it'll have the street name on it, and then it'll say City of Leon, and then the colony name. So when we would, talk to someone in the street, we would always ask them, "Oh, what colony do you live in?" And then they'd tell us what colony, the street name, and then a lot of them don't really have house numbers, so it was always kind of hard finding that. A lot of them do, but sometimes we had to go by, what did the house look like, what color it was, if it had a car in front, stuff like that. That was pretty much a regular thing every day. We'd do a lot of walking through several colonies, just because sometimes it's just easier to get around on foot than on bus. Bus, you can get there faster, but it's just like they go their specific ways, right? They don't just go until, something like a taxi, and taxis can kind of get a little expensive. So walking on foot, you get to notice a lot of streets, you get to notice a lot of people and their jobs, just people sitting out, and you also get to experience a lot of different foods, lots of people selling food in the streets, fruit, tacos, stuff like that. And, as far as the weather goes, it has its regular seasons. It's not really like Seattle where it's cloudy all year long or it rains. Summer months it gets really hot. Winter, there's just not any snow because you're not that high up in the elevation. But it did rain a lot. The winter that I spent in Leon around Christmas time, it just rained and rained and rained, and it was really cold. So if anyone is going to this mission, I would suggest bringing a jacket, because I was told that Mexico is very hot and you don't need a jacket, you don't need a blanket or long sleeve shirts. But my first winter there, I was very wrong, and so I had to break down. I bought a jacket and used a lot of blankets, and I wish I would have had more long sleeve shirts. It's very similar to Utah weather, or just not, there's no snow, but it can get pretty cold in the mornings. So as far as shopping goes, there are plenty of supermarkets, there are plenty of little corner stores. Here we might call them convenience stores. In Mexico, anyone will do anything to get business, to have a job. So a lot of people will just open up stores from their home, and they'll sell, canned goods and dairy products, lots of cereal or grains, stuff like that, and they'll just sell it right out of their house. So you could, one thing we would always do is, if we were hungry, we wouldn't really pack snacks, because there were really stores on every corner, and it's always really cheap. You just grab something from there, and if you want to do your grocery shopping on a P day or something like that, you can walk over to an actual grocery store or take a bus, and there it's exactly like a U.S. grocery store. You have your fruits and vegetables section and frozen foods, and I got excited because in one grocery store I found Betty Crocker brownie mix, so bought that and made that on a P day, and Just, it's very similar to the US. And there's lots of stuff you can do. There's museums, there's parks you can go to. A lot of times we would go to a park and we'd play soccer, and it was this nice AstroTurf field, and you can go running. There was a park in Leon that surrounded a lake, a rather large lake in the city, and there was a trail on it, and you could rent bikes and ride a bike on it. That was pretty fun. I guess as far as like safety in there, because a lot of Americans, we just have this idea that Mexico is very dangerous. There are parts that are very dangerous. My mission was actually pretty safe. They're called the gang members down there. They're usually called cholos, and they respect religious people. I got a lot of respect from them, because it is a little intimidating. You might see someone with a lot of tattoos. They might be drinking. They might be, smoking, like marijuana or something like that. And you just kindly say hello, and you keep walking, and they'll say hi back, and they don't want to start any or mess with you. Most of them know that missionaries don't have money, that they're just here to teach people about the gospel. And so I never really had to worry about cholos or gang members or any gang violence or anything like that. And every city kind of has its dangerous part. I guess a ghetto area, and we'll write that down on the map in our apartment. Don't go here after dark, or something like that, or only go here with a member, or only go here if it's a member with a car, or something like that. But I never got into any fights. I never got chased down or anything like that. The Queretaro mission is actually a very safe mission. Where I was in Leon, they have a very, very good transportation system. Lots of buses. They actually run pretty frequently. Especially Leon is so big that it has 4 or 5 bus terminals that, you won't just get on one bus to get from one end of the city to the other. You'll probably have to take 2 buses, and what will happen is you'll get on the bus, and it'll take you to a bus terminal. You get off, and you get on another bus, kind of like a subway station. And the drivers are pretty friendly. And one thing we would do down there is we would actually talk to the people on the bus. And a very effective way of doing that is you get your companion to go on the end of the bus, and then you ask the driver if you can make a small announcement. And you just stand up at the front of the bus, and you give them your little spiel that you're missionaries and that you're here to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. And you just kindly ask everybody on the bus if they'd like to know more. Some people just don't want to be bothered, and they might not look at you, or they might just like say, oh, no, I'm Catholic, or I'm a Jehovah's Witness. I don't want to know anymore. And you can just hand them a card and ask them if they want to visit the website, stuff like that. And it was a very effective way of meeting people and getting, their contact information, and we'd go visit them. So I liked doing that on the bus. At first, it's a little intimidating, but once you start doing it a bunch of times, it becomes kind of fun. You get on there, you get excited, and you're just like, hi, I'm a missionary. And so I would say, because if you don't do that and you get on the bus, sometimes you can waste a lot of time, because it might be like a 20-minute bus ride. So to pass that time, you can talk to people on the bus, and that way you don't feel like you're wasting your time. The ratio is $1 US dollar is about 13 pesos in Mexico. And you can just kind of round it to like 10 pesos to the dollar. So most of the places where I lived, it was about 2,000 pesos. So around $200 a month, more like 180 or 175 a month. And that was usually just the rent, and then you had to pay utilities. So, which the water, they were pretty cheap. I mean, in comparison to what you pay here in the U.S., down there it was like 70 pesos for the electric bill, that would be like, $6 here, or 6.50. And it was pretty similar with the water, like 40 pesos. Every so often you'll have to move, and the rule in our mission was you had to live somewhere that was at or under, I think it was 2,100 pesos. But you can find places to live. You can find, even cheaper places. A lot of members will actually rent out, another house that they have, or there'll be like a property manager, and you can get a good deal and stuff like that. So there's always places to live, and I would suggest the best places to live are the ones that are on like the main bus route that you'll be taking, because if you have to walk 15 minutes to get to the main bus, it's just a waste of time. So, and usually on those main bus routes, that's where you'll find like the grocery stores and laundromats and the church. Usually the church is on a main bus route or like a block away from the main bus route. So I'd say that's like the number one tip. If you ever find yourself having to look for a new house, get it on a good bus route that you take all the time. My president, his name's Javier El Mejorada, and he's Mexican. He's a very kind man. He speaks English. If you don't speak Spanish very well right off the bat, he can communicate with you in English. His family is very nice. He has his wife and kids in the mission. His kids are they're teenagers. They're very nice. They speak English fluently. But one thing to know about President Mejorada is that he's a very successful businessman. And so when I was there, he's very, very spiritual, but he's also very business oriented. So, and I saw that a lot of missionaries in the mission had a problem with that, because they thought that he was trying to run it like a business. But really, there's a reason why he was chosen by God to be this mission president. And I knew when I got switched into a new mission, I knew that I was supposed to have him as my mission president. He's very understanding. If you ever have a problem in the mission, you can talk to him. And he brings out the best in you. He knows how to help you. He knows how to talk and work with missionaries. If anyone experiences a change in mission presidents, don't compare them side by side. Don't say oh, this president was better than this president. Because I noticed that when we had our switch, missionaries that had come from the Leon mission instantly noticed that President Mejorado was different than their old president. So they started comparing the two, and they just got off on a very wrong foot with President Mejorada. And it caused a little bit of chaos at the beginning because people didn't really know what to do. So if you get switched to a new mission, or if you get a new mission president in your mission, expect that there will be changes, and expect that things will kind of go a little slow at first. Because just like when you get to the field, you're learning everything. Well, that mission president, he's learning a lot more than you ever had to, getting into the field. So don't compare and contrast the two. Rather, trust that Heavenly Father has put this mission president in your mission for a reason, and all will benefit from it. Definitely something called chapulines. And chapulines are grasshoppers. They will catch them and they'll throw them right in the frying pan and cook them. And they'll just be very crispy. they'll put them in a tortilla and make a taco, put a little salsa on it, and they don't taste bad because all grasshoppers eat is just like grass and stuff like that. So it tastes like an herb, like a plant. But the only weird thing about it is you get their little feet and legs stuck in your teeth, and so that's kind of weird. But I tried to stay away from some of the crazier things like chicken feet because it looked way too gross. But you eat a lot of cheese and you eat a lot of yogurt and a lot of fruit and nothing too out of the ordinary. You eat a lot of tacos. So. One of the craziest experiences was when I got sick. As I mentioned before, I actually got a parasite, and it was not to scare any missionaries going out there, but it was some stomach pain, a little more intense than I had ever experienced before, and it hurt. But like I said, that medicine, once I started taking that, and you only take it for 3 days, and you feel better, and it goes away. But I never crazy experiences like life and death situations. I never experienced anything like that. You can have some crazy drivers, especially if you take a taxi. Sometimes you might, be wondering like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die in this taxi. But they might be crazy drivers, but they know how to drive. So they'll get you there in one piece. This is actually one of the most spiritual experiences I had on my mission. It actually took place my last 2 weeks as a missionary. And just to kind of back up a little bit, the time that you spend in the morning in your personal study, in your language study, and in your study with your companion are some of the most important hours of your day. And I feel that as a missionary, I kind of lost sight of that. I really enjoyed personal study. I loved reading my scriptures and preach my gospel and like highlighting things and writing down stuff that I wanted to work on. But when in companionship study, it's so easy to get off track and just kind of waste time. And if you waste that time, you can't really, prepare to teach your investigators or new people, or prepare to find new people. And in my last 2 weeks, I got a brand new companion because my other companion that I had, he was having some problems with the language, so they moved him to an area more close to the mission offices. So I got a new companion my last 2 weeks, and I had to teach in the area, and I was like, oh great, this is how I'm going to spend my last 2 weeks. But really, he wanted to get down to business, he wanted to work, and we had some very good companionship study sessions. And I remember we found a daughter of an old investigator that when we met her, she thought we were kind of weird because he was an American as well. So she just sees these two white guys like, what are you doing at my house? And we started teaching her, and we got some members to come by and visit her with us. And we found out that she had some pretty big personal issues that caused her to doubt or to not have faith in God. Kind of like one of the situations, how can God allow this to happen? That was, her, she just couldn't understand that. And my companion and I, we had only been working together for a week, but we really put our heads together and we tried to follow the Spirit, and we really used that companionship study time, and we prepared a lesson for her. And that night, we went and visited her, and we followed the Spirit as best we could. We went by our lesson plan, but it was amazing how much she opened up, and I could see and feel that she could feel the Spirit, and she knew what we were saying was true, and she was crying, and I can just imagine like how it felt for her to know that God was there for her, and that bad things do happen, but it's not because God doesn't love us. And I think that's when she really realized that. And that night she committed to being baptized, and she accepted a baptismal date, and she was going to church. And I finished my mission, and when I came home, I found her on Facebook, and I connected with her. And about a month after I went home, she got baptized. And she became really good friends with the bishop and his family, and I think she's doing really well now. So that was just a really good example of the good that companionship study does for you as a missionary, for your companion, and especially for your investigators. Whenever you go on a foreign mission, and I hear this all across the board, no matter where you are in the world, in your first area, you will just do a lot of nodding and saying yes. You won't have a clue what they're talking about. You're just going to smile and say yes. And, well, my last name is Clayton, and one member in my first area thought it sounded very similar to Clinton. And so he asked me if Bill Clinton was my dad. And I looked him straight in the face and I said, yes, yes. And he started laughing, and my companion started laughing, and I had no idea what I had just said. And I was thinking, all I said was yes. What did I say? And then they told me that I said that Bill Clinton was my dad. You pronounce words pretty, people will kind of look at you funny because you'll say a word. For example, Christmas is Navidad in Spanish. And for my first Christmas and like my first 6 months of my mission, I would always say Navidad. And like I'd stress the wrong vowel. So like people would kind of look at me funny. Or I'd try and translate phrases in English into Spanish. And you can't do that. They just don't make sense. Like if you want to say what's up, you can't say, hey, ¿qué está arriba? Because they'll be looking like up at the sky like, what's up there? And so you learn little things like that you kind of just have to go through those motions at the beginning. One time I said, I was bearing my testimony, and I said, I know that Joseph Smith is a Bible. And the person was like, what? Because Bible and prophet in Spanish kind of sound a little similar, but it's just, you just learn and you have fun with it, and once you start speaking more, you stop making so many mistakes. One important life lesson that I learned was it is very important to keep your cool in whatever situation. It's because, outside of the mission, it's kind of easy to lose your top, to kind of blow up, because you deal with difficult people and stuff like that. And in the mission, just because you're doing the Lord's work doesn't mean that you're exempt from dealing with difficult people. I had several companions that I lost my patience with a few times, and I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to be like, hey, what's wrong with you? But I would just get quiet. I'd maybe go into another room. I'd pray. I'd try to do something else. And when I was calm, I'd go and talk to him, and I'd apologize to him for being angry or stuff like that. As a missionary, you need the Spirit. You need that Spirit to be there. And if you're angry at each other, you and your companion, or you're angry at the bishop, or he's upset with you guys, or with another ward member or something, if the Spirit's not there, you're not going to be able to accomplish anything. And as a missionary, once you realize that, you just want to be like, all right, well, let's hash this out now. Let's get the Spirit back, as if it's like a switch. But it can't work that way. Sometimes, I'd say the most common one is with your companion. You guys will get into an argument. you can't, if it is fixable, you can say, hey, and be sincere, and hey, I'm sorry, and you can keep going on with your day. But if you get into a big argument and you just try and cut it off right there, like, okay, I'm sorry, you're right, whatever. Sometimes you just got to go back to your apartment and just chill out and be quiet for a few minutes, kind of settle down, and then you can talk. I realized on the mission that when someone's mad, you don't just storm in there and be like, hey, stop being mad, we're gonna work out this right now. You kind of just got to let the person have their time, and you got to be patient. And that has definitely helped me now, with roommates or with friends or family members. If I upset them and they get kind of mad, I need them to know that I'm sincere, that I'm sorry. You just kind of learn how to deal with people and to deal with yourself on your mission. Okay, I learned it, and now I'm probably pretty rusty, but I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube on my mission. I had one companion that had one, and he swore that he would teach me how to do it. And they have lots of cheap toys down there, so you can get a Rubik's Cube for 5 pesos. And I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And then, of course, speaking Spanish or cooking certain foods, or, one thing I never learned in Mexico is I still can't roll my R's. I keep trying still, and I can't do it. So there's lots of little things you can learn, how to whistle, how to, do lots of stuff like that. Because you pass a lot of time with your companion, and sometimes you'll be walking on a street and there won't be any houses, there won't be any people, and you get to know your companion more, and you can work on little things like that. Awesome. My last area, where all the shoe factories were, I finished my mission in July, so in the months of like May and June, lots of rain and lots of wind, and like it's the kind of storm that you see in the movies where you see like a few drops and you're like, oh, I wonder if it's going to start raining, and then it just comes crashing down. And that was just, it was a lot of fun running through the rain. I don't know what it is about missions, but as a missionary, the rain is just like 10 times more fun. You're just running to your next appointment or to lunch or to your apartment, and you don't care. You're getting soaked, but you don't care. You're just having a blast. So it rained a lot. And then in my last area, I went through my whole mission without being in an earthquake. And in my last area, there was like a 5-second earthquake, and we were in an apartment building on the 4th floor. And we're studying, and all of a sudden, like, the table starts wobbling, and I can see the ground kind of shift in the apartment. And we ran outside, and it was done. But yeah, those are kind of like the extreme weather, earthquake kind of stuff that I saw. There are a lot of them. Like I said, difficult companions, or promising appointments will fall through, or it's one big thing is sometimes you'll get a missionary that does stuff that he's not supposed to, or that doesn't work very hard, and the ward will kind of lose their trust in the missionaries. And I came to a few wards where it was like that, and we really had to work hard to show the members, hey, we're here to work, we're here to serve you guys. And you just sit there and you talk to them, and you share your testimony, and you ask them to come with you to go visit investigators or inactive members, and you get them excited about missionary work and about working with the missionaries. And it's amazing the change that'll happen in an area. Leon, when I got there, because you eat with the members every day, it was just one family that was feeding us like 3 or 4 times a week, and then a few other people, or we wouldn't have anybody that would feed us, because they were just sick of the missionaries that were there before my companion and I. And when we really started visiting each member, teaching them a lesson, or sharing our testimonies with them, they saw that we were there to work. And it was funny. Lots of people just started signing up to feed us every day. And that family that fed us, 4 times a week, started only feeding us once or once a week or once every 2 weeks, because there wasn't room for them on the calendar to write their names down. So that's definitely a challenge, is just gaining the respect and trust from the members. A lot of places you'll show up there and they'll already love you, and you won't even know them. They'll just see you have your name tag on, and they'll just want to hug you and say welcome, and they'll love you right away. Find stuff to do with your time. Go, eat your favorite American foods, or go hang out with your friends, or go to a library. I don't know. Just do something with your time. When I got home, I was so bored. I didn't really have an issue with the whole no companion thing. I got home and I was fine. I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't have someone right next to me. But the weirdest thing for me is I didn't have a day planner. I didn't have something to tell me, what are we doing right now? That was probably the biggest challenge for me, was just finding stuff to do with my time. Go get a job, start earning that money so that you can take girls out on dates, and so you can, put gas in your car or buy a car so you can pay for school, stuff like that. When I got home, about a month after I got home, I got a job, and it was kind of just a lot of hard work, but they paid pretty well. It was like 10 or 12-hour days. But, it was something to do with my time. And I got to talk to people about my mission. 'Cause it's funny, when you get home, people that know you are like, so how was it? And you get to talk about it. And then people that you don't know, they ask you, so what have you been up to lately? And you tell them, hey, I served a mission. And it's just a cool opportunity to talk about that. It's funny how, when you get home from your mission, you don't really talk about high school or stuff that you did before your mission, because it's all kind of old news to you. You just talk about your mission all the time, and you try not to, but it happens. It just spills out. And now, I talk about my mission to people just because it's such a big part of my life, that I'll just be, oh, I met someone like that on my mission, or I tried this on my mission. And I'd say, make sure, if you haven't already written those things down in journals from your mission, write it down now, because it is kind of forgettable sometimes. I know that it doesn't matter where you go, all this work that we do as missionaries and as members, it all comes from the Lord. I never could have imagined that I was going to go to Mexico. And when I got my call, and I knew that's where Heavenly Father wanted me to be. And when I got there, it was amazing, the things that we did with members and with people on the street. And I learned, even in the MTC, I'd never talked to an investigator before. I knew that what I was doing was the Lord's work. I could feel it. I could think about it. I could get excited about it. And if you happen to get called to the Mexico Queretaro mission, it really is the best mission on earth for me. And I will never forget the things that I felt there and the experiences that I had. And I know that, as a missionary, everyone kind of goes through kind of the same stuff, rejection and acceptance and, weird new cultures and stuff like that. But really, your mission is so individual, because Heavenly Father teaches you things that only you can learn, or that only, you can teach someone else. And it is such a personal experience. And I would say that, it wasn't the mission that I had intended on. I thought it was going to be different, but when it came down to finishing time, I realized that it was the mission that Heavenly Father wanted me to have, and I was happy with it. I was excited about the things that I had learned, and it means more and more to me now. Every day, as I think about, how are things? How are my converts? How are the missionaries and the members that I met down there? It's funny how little smells or, sounds can just bring you back to the field. And it means more and more to me every day. All those things help me to know that this really is the Lord's work. You're called and set apart from your family to help other families and other individuals who are struggling on the same road, or who might not even know that they're struggling, so that they can get back to the presence of Heavenly Father and His Son. And the Savior really does become your best friend on your mission. And I know that is where you really come to know His love for you and for everyone else that you're serving. And I know that this church is true. I know that the scriptures are true. And I know that we really were called of God to be missionaries. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.